The three voices is something that is part of Chinese medicine, East Asian medicine, also part of Sufism, also part of other traditions, but I'm not qualified to speak from other traditions. These are the ones I know enough about. And the notion is that we have different voices inside of us. In our inner narrative, it's not always the same person speaking. It's not always the same tone. It's not always the same voice. And in East Asian medicine, the three voices are Shin, or heart, which is not considered to be our voice. In East Asian medicine, the heart is a radiant void in which spirit dwells. The same spirit in my radiant void as dwells in your radiant void. The same light. It comes through a different stained glass window. It comes through a different shaped lantern. But there's a light that comes and it enters the human being in this place called the heart. So the voice of the heart is a voice that is not the voice of the self. It's the voice of something that comes from beyond the self, that is indwelling, but that connects us to a reality beyond ourselves. Then there's the voice of the self, which within the self, there's another multitude of voices. There's the liver saying, I'm going to punch him in the nose. And there's the lungs saying, I'm insulted. And there's the spleen saying, but they didn't hug me. And I feel weird and squishy. And there's any number of voices that it's us. It's not the voice of the infinite. It's the voice of me, or one of my me's. And so we've been working a little bit with learning this distinction in the last 2 weeks of the difference between me and what I'm going to call me plus, me resourced, me with heart. And that's very important. And I'm shifting it a little bit to say, okay, there's me. There's me with heart. And there's, what is the voice of the heart? What is the voice of something even deeper than health? But it's definitely in that direction, like moving in that direction. What is the voice of the big love, you could call it? What is the voice of the infinite? What is the voice of spirit? What is the whatever we want to call this thing? That's not my truth and your truth. It's actually a meeting place. When Quakers are meeting, they're meeting to meet here, not at Louis at 12 for a bite of something. It's like this meeting in the heart. What does the heart say? What is the voice of the heart? It's not the same as what I say, because I'm pretty smart. And even me at my best is not the same as the voice of the heart. Even me at my PhD, smarty pantsist, expert, I've been doing this for 30 years, is not the same as that which connects to the infinite and through which a different kind of insight and understanding arrives right in the middle of me. So that's 2 out of 3 of the voices. This is the setting of the compass, the setting of the compass, so that as I hear voices inside of myself, or hear responses to those voices, because a lot of the time what will happen is we'll have an emotion about something. But that emotion is actually a response to a voice saying, I don't know, I think this is going to be terrible, and they're not going to, Why did Billy get that? And then we get mad. It's not fair. So that's the voice of the self leading to an emotion. Other times, we have a voice from the heart, and that may lead to a different emotion. It may lead to a different action. We're going to be looking at using these voices as a compass to get a sense of who's speaking, and because there's different values to them. So there's the self, and the self can be in various states. There's the heart, and then there's the other one. I set them up as chairs. When we taught my son about it when he was 2 years old, we did it by setting up 3 chairs. And the chair in the middle was the self chair. And the chair on one side was the big heart chair. And the one on the other side was what we called the demon whisperer, or just the whisperer sometimes. In Chinese East Asian medicine, this is xia, or external pernicious influence. They're just like viruses. They're in the air. They're going around. Whether or not you catch them has to do with how weak or strong your system is at that moment. In Sufism, that voice is called the shaitan. Also, the demon whisperers, or whisperer is a good one from there too. Those voices, well, when my son at the age of 2 learned about these chairs, we would then play musical chairs with it on various subjects in order to hear from all the 3 voices and really learn them. When he was in the self chair, he would say, I want, I need, I think, I know, I, me. And when he was in the big heart chair, we called it the Allah chair, he would say, love, love, peace, love. And when he was in the whisperer chair, he would say, always, never, can't, have to. Get the idea? There's a feeling to that. I think he did it really well. There's a feeling to that voice. Always, never, can't, have to. It's a voice that no matter what the words are, you know it by the bad movie music behind it. Like when that bad movie music comes in, you're like, oh shit. Whatever it's saying is not nearly as important as the tone of the voice. And it's the tone of exactly the opposite of the big heart. And in fact, it's the tone of crushing your heart. It's the heart crusher voice. It's the voice that says the things that, if that were true, you might as well jump off that bridge right now. Like, it's really good at finding the exact thing to say that shoots you right down and sends you from a flying bird, boom, down to the abyss. It's genius. It's brilliant. In the long run, it's fabulous. It's really great that we have that around, because we never listen to that voice or even notice it unless we're already in loss of heart. You may have noticed the things that, if you're well fed, you've slept well the night before, and everybody loves you, you don't believe that crap. Somebody says, you're blah, 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 blah. You're like, yeah, you're having a hard day, aren't you? It's like having good immunity. Xia doesn't get in. External pernicious influences, they just don't get in. You're like, uh-huh. Or you don't even notice it at all. Everybody else is sniffling. You don't care. Sometimes our first awareness that we are in loss of heart is a demon voice, is a whisperer voice saying, you're never going to do that, or you dumbass, look what you just did. Like, whoa, check that out. Was that the voice of the infinite love? Is it even the voice of the self? See, the thing is, a lot of time, it even is a dead giveaway. It even says you. I love it when it does that because it's like, oh, positive idea on that one. Whose voice? It's like, oh, great, I'm hearing a demon voice. I promise you in the long run, it's going to be fabulous. Not in the short run, maybe, but in the long run, it's going to be absolutely fabulous to have these little nasty ninja assassins around in your life because they help you find where you've lost heart and left it for dead and just buried it in a shallow grave and said, well, never mind. The vulture will start circling right there over that shallow grave and start picking on you. And it's mean. It's all out mean. I kid you not. It's meanness. Meanness. It's cruel. It is the opposite of compassionate accountability. It is cruel blame. Crush you. And when we hear that voice or one of those voices, hallelujah, I'm going to recommend first, I know who you are. I know that you are not the voice of the loving truth. You are not the voice of the deep heart. You are not the voice of the compassionate infinite. I know that. Therefore, I know you lie. The first most wonderful thing about being able to have this compass and sort these three voices is, okay, I know who you are. I may still be under it. I may still be hurting. I may not have done anything about it. But once I even know whose voice it is, that puts it in a different category. We started, one of the reasons we really needed to do these lessons for our son is that he was meeting some other kids on the playground and they weren't all nice. And we taught him that when somebody's speaking in the voice of the big love, they're great to play with. When somebody's speaking in the voice of the self, they could use a little love to bring them back to the heart. When the person's speaking from the dark whisperer, you can't take them seriously. And we just emphasize that over and again. And we do it on radio and TV or whatever. Whenever we heard those, it's like, oh, whose voice is that? That's the whisper. And then we'd all chorus, yeah, you can't take them seriously. Which gave him a really different relationship to kids who made mean comments to him. Oh, that's the whisperer. Can't take it seriously. It may be a little while before we're fully in that, but at least to say, I know who you are. Know who you are. Second step. Gosh, who's listening to that voice? Because the voice couldn't get in unless part of us is buying into it. And that part of us would not buy into it if it were not already in loss of heart. So, with compassionate accountability, this is a healing moment. In the long run, those demon voices do all our best detective work for us because they show us where the healing is needed in exactly where we've given up on it. So, step one, I know who you are. I know whose voice that is. It's not the voice of the big heart. It's not the great and holy love. It's a go for the jugular voice. Second step, wow, who's listening to that voice? This is not something to think about. This is something to feel about. And the question that I tend to use is, where does it hurt? That's the voice. It's saying, you bitch, you did it, you're horrible, you're ugly, and nobody will ever love you, and they're right. Wow, I know who you are. Who's listening to that? where does it hurt? And I'll find a specific, like there's a spot that's like kind of in the curve of my right shoulder, you know? It's not actually not the lung points, it's right in the spleen line up there. That doesn't matter. That's an acupuncture thing. It's like, ow, somebody in there is hurting. Ow, somebody in there is in loss of heart. Ow, somebody despaired and dropped away and then curled up like a little hedgehog and said, never mind me. Because it's in despair. It's in deep loss of heart. And we might be like, well, never mind, fine. I just soldier on, keep going, doesn't matter, patch it up, move on. But the voices keep coming and the voices keep coming and the voices keep coming. Sometimes we do a temp job and we say, I know who you are. Thank you for sharing. I'm busy right now. I'm not listening. Sometimes that's a good temp job. Taking it further is going to mean listening. Who's listening to that? Where does it hurt? And can I get a spiritual second opinion on that? What does the voice of heart have to say about it? Now, as we practice with it, maybe you'll surprise me. I don't know, for me, the stage of taking where it hurts and actually turning that part of us towards the love is slow. It takes less time than I fear it will, but more time than I want it to. And if I try to rush it, it slows down. And it's a lot easier in groups where people can hold us in the compassionate accountability and be the reminder of turning to the big heart. And as we turn that part of us back to the big heart, there's that very, very uncomfortable feeling that happens, which is part of healing, which is that an ancient anguish from when we were 5 or 13 or 23 or whatever it was. That ancient anguish comes loose and it's in the washing machine and starts to move, and we go, owie, 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 owie. Ah, owie, 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 owie. But in a good kind of way as it starts to move. Oh, good. Now the same thing is hurting on the other side in me. So I'm getting a healing, and hope you guys are in on this movement about all of that. Yeah. Yeah. Very often that wounded hedgehog inside of us, that curled up part of the self that is in loss of heart and perhaps has been in loss of heart for decades, possibly. Often it's that wounded hedgehog is curled up around a question, an unanswered question. Am I an ugly bitch and no one will love me? What kind of, am I lovable? I mean, like boiling out, am I lovable? And it's like, I'm so curled up around the question that not even God can get in to answer it. And then this stabbed all over my, I'm like, I know who you are. Step back. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for helping me realize that there's a part that's really hurting, that's in need of healing. Precious work. Thanks. Great. I will not abandon you. Where does it hurt? Right there. I will not abandon you. Wondering, what is the question? What is the hurt? What is the wound? And understanding if you don't get an answer right away, because often these are places that don't trust us for shit, because we've judged them relentlessly and told them they were stupid and told them to get over it. Hurry up, you're a baby. Like we've often treated the unhealed places in us badly enough that they're not talking to us anymore. And so we need to get into a counter bulldog here and understand that if that hedgehog is not uncurling, if that little child is not coming out from behind the sofa right now, then we need to sit there and maybe put some cookies and milk by the edge of the sofa, and maybe sit there and read a Winnie the Pooh story out loud, or whatever it is we need to do to bring heart into the region of the place that hurts so much that it's wide open for demon arrows. And little by little, that hedgehog may begin to uncurl enough that we can say to it, hey, I know somebody I'd like you to meet there in this other chair. I'd like to hold you in my hands, in my arms, and slowly turn my body. I will do this physically when I'm in a rough state. I'll like, that's the one chair. That's the other chair. And I'll hold that part of myself and start turning towards the big love. Like I can't even go fully right away. I'll just be like, okay, am I an ugly bitch and no one will ever love me? And this is the most annoying part, but I'm just full disclosure. I never get an answer immediately. Instead, I get waves and waves of mercy and compassion and love. And I'm like, stop with the mercy and compassion and love. Just tell me the answer. But it just doesn't work that way. I think we need to be tenderized. The healing comes first. We're like, oh God, okay, love, fine. And as the love comes in and the humiliations of however many, whatever it was that led to feeling that way, I'm just like getting a lot of junior high school memories are like flushing through right now. Like, oh God, not again and again and again, until I thought of myself a certain way and started living in that loss of heart. And then it's like a lifetime of like, whenever I'm in loss of heart. So at a certain point, it gets to what I call healed enough that the demon voices are clearly ridiculous, but there's more healing to do. And so we do, we pledge it over time. We have 4 minutes left of class. So here's what I have to say. It is my sense that interracial healing initiatives are screwed mightily by not having clarity about the difference between these voices. When they're speaking in us, when they're speaking to us, when they're speaking through us. And that wounds, instead of healing, fester in even deeper poisoned arrow shots. For this 2-week interim, this is not an order, but it's a suggestion. For this 2-week interim, I would love for you to make a list of your favorite demon voices, the ones that recur over and over and over again. And I wouldn't even focus on racial stuff. I would focus on your quotidian, your everyday garden variety. Like, what's your style of like, what are the main demon voices that you hear? And I would write them down. And I would strongly consider every single time you hear the same one, put a mark next to it. I've noticed that when I do that with a demon voice, when I get to around 25, 27, it's so boring by then. And I'm like, oh yeah, you again. Okay, are you a tape recording? And it goes from being the most terrifying voice ever to like, okay, I do need to deal with this because it's going over and over again. Just hearing it is usually not enough for that to demystify. Please write it down. Write a list of them. Underneath the heading, demon voices, so that it's really clear. Demon voices. You stupid, ugly bitch. You know, you'll never da-da-da. You're always not. Yeah. And writing them down and being with them as demon voices. If you wish, you can also begin feeling for, don't try to be successful, it's fine if you're not. Oh, where does that hurt? Who's listening to that? And oh, when I can, I really want to take this for a spiritual second opinion from the big heart and find out what the big heart has to say on this very important subject of whether I'm lovable, of whether I'm worthy, of whether I'm a good partner, or whether I'm a this, or whether it's a, or what, like, we're just gathering the subject matter. And I would love for us to get a little facility in working with what I call demon flipping, with getting to what is the question and what is the holy answer, what is the healthy answer, what does the big heart have to say about this. I'd like to do that on general terrain first, and then bring it into the racial arena, because I want to start with our average home ground on it.